Hello everyone, in this episode we'll be making braised beef shank with homemade udon noodles, also known as 卤牛肉和手工乌冬. This here is about 1 kilogram of beef shank, and I'm just going to cut it in half to show you the marbling on it. It's amazing. It's a bit hard to cut because I've frozen it for a little bit. I bought it some time back, but I finally decided to make something with it. Look at the marbling on that shank. It's incredible. There's a lot of collagen in beef shank, so that's just going to melt right away once we braise it. We're going to do a bit of trimming. Now, we need to be careful because there is a little bit of fat on the shank, but some of it is actually tendon or connective tissue that will break down nicely after we stew it. Fat, on the other hand, will make it greasy. If you can see a nice thick blob like that doesn't pull off easily, that's tendon. If it's small and pulls off easily, that's fat. We're gonna rinse the beef shank in some clean water and soak it overnight. Prepare some ginger and scallion bits and set those aside. We'll also need the following spices: a stick of cinnamon, 2 bay leaves, 3 star anise, 6 cloves, and about a teaspoon of fennel seeds. We'll also need a piece of black cardamom, and we're going to remove the seeds inside because they're very bitter. There you go. Now we need to rinse the spices to get rid of any dirt on them. Now do note that after rinsing the spices, it may be hard to get them out, especially the fennel seeds. I recommend using a strainer like this one. We'll heat up the wok with some water in it, and we'll bring this water up to a boil. The beef has been soaked in water overnight, so a lot of the myoglobin has come out, but we still need to blanch it for a little bit. We'll put in the beef while the water is still cold. It doesn't really matter. And then we'll just leave it there until the beef boils. There's also a small piece of shank in there. We'll skim the scum that floats up to the surface after the beef starts boiling. After about 10 minutes, we can take the beef out. Carefully put it into some clean water, just to cool it down. We'll now heat up the wok again with a little bit of water, to which we're going to add about 20 grams of sugar. We're going to dissolve the sugar in the water and just stir it to form a syrup. Then, we'll boil the water off gently until eventually most of the water is gone and it starts to form a syrupy consistency. Once the color is about a nice caramel color, add in a little bit more water, just to prevent it from burning. And then we'll add in the rest of the water. All in all, I've got about 1.5 liters of water that I'm going to use. We'll add in the spices from earlier, as well as 2 pieces of dried orange peel. We're making a lower sodium version of the broth this time. We're going to need 60 milliliters of light soy sauce and 20 of dark soy sauce. We'll also add in the ginger and scallions. What's going to happen is that we're going to braise the beef in this light liquid. We're just going to pour this mixture into the spare water now. Here I've got in total about 1.5 liters of liquid. and we're gonna add the beef shank right in. What's gonna happen here is we're going to gently braise this beef shank in this low sodium broth, and once it's done, we'll need to let it cool, and then we'll slice it, and then we'll let those slices soak up the sauce even more. For a more traditional saltiness, you're gonna need to add some salt, of course. About 1.5% of the weight of the water in salt. Here's me adding some dark soy sauce because I felt that the color wasn't enough. And we'll just let that come to a gentle simmer and cover the pot, leaving it slightly ajar. Now, I forgot one thing here, which was the yellow wine, which we're going to add about, that's like 2 tablespoons of it. And this will alleviate the gamey flavor of the beef as well. We'll cover it, bring it to a gentle simmer, and leave it there for an hour. Here I've got some flour. That's 400 grams of flour and 20 grams of salt. We're slowly going to incorporate some water into it. The hydration ratio should be about 45%. That is to say, about 180 milliliters of water in all. We'll cover that so the dough doesn't dry out. After about an hour, or an hour and a half, take a chopstick and try to poke the beef. If it goes in nicely and picks up like that, it's done. At this point, we'll turn the heat off, cover it, and leave it for another hour to soak up a bit more flavor. The dough has rested for half an hour now, so we're going to prepare it. We'll cut it into 4 portions. Overall, each portion of dough weighs 150 grams. We're going to knead the dough with our hands. Now, it will be a little bit tough to knead at first because of the low hydration ratio. You're going to have to roll it out and fold it back in several times. Compare the one that's been kneaded on the right versus the one that hasn't on the left. You can see that the unkneaded one is tougher. Repeat this with all of the dough balls. Each one is probably going to take you about 10 minutes. Prepare 4 soft-boiled eggs. And we'll boil that braising liquid again. Once it's boiling, we'll turn off the heat, and then we'll just ladle some of that over the eggs. This way, we can let the eggs soak up a little bit of flavor while still remaining soft-boiled. We'll set those aside for now. The beef is cooled, and you can see that beautiful marbling as well as the tendons. We're now going to take some slices of the beef shank. Once again, I've opted for a lower sodium version of the sauce. Here we have a nice little interior there. You can see the connective tissue, the collagen melted down. It's going to be nice and tender. Now, after slicing this beef, it's a good idea to soak it in the braising liquid again for at least 15 minutes so that it can pick up a bit more flavor, because it's not salty enough currently. You could, of course, alleviate this problem by just adding more salt to the braising liquid in the first place, although this may limit the range of applications with which you can reuse that braising liquid later on, because you're probably going to have a lot left over. We'll add a bit of oil to the wok now, and if you have extra beef fat, you can add that in, but it's not necessary. We'll then add in a few pieces of fresh scallions. What we're doing here is making a light scallion oil, which we'll use to put on the beef. After a few minutes of frying the scallions, you can remove them. And simply reserve this oil for later. We'll put some on each bowl of noodles. Okay. So, for each ball of dough, we're going to have to work it until it's nice and thin. Of course, you can use a rolling pin if you prefer. I like to just use my knife to help me out a little bit. to make it a nice rectangle shape. If you want to roll it out thinner for thinner noodles, you can do that too. Because udon noodles are generally quite thick, so we like to roll them out until a thickness of about 4 millimeters. But you can go thinner if you like. We're now going to take slices of those noodles. Now, unlike hand-stretched noodles or the traditional knife-sliced noodles that they make in China, udon noodles are very easy to make at home, as you can see here. Other types of noodles require higher amounts of skill, and you can find other guides for them available on YouTube or the rest of the internet. You can, of course, cut the noodles as thick or thin as you please. Finally, it's time to prepare our noodles. We'll boil some water and add a portion of noodles. These thick noodles will take 6 to 7 minutes to cook. The thinner ones just 3 to 4 minutes. Once they're done, we'll drain them. You can save a little bit of that water to thicken the gravy. However, be careful because the noodles release a lot of salt, so that water gets salty pretty fast. Once your noodles are ready, you can plate them up the way you wish. You can add beef shank, soft-boiled eggs, scallion oil, spring onions, all your choice. Enjoy.